welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I am your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on the program today, top 10 rankings for this year's running back draft class. I do have a feeling the Texans are going to draft a running back at some point in this 2025 NFL draft. The Texans currently have 7 picks at the time that I'm filming this video, and I'm basing these rankings off of a couple of things. I'm doing it off of fit, obviously their skill level, and where they're going to go in this year's draft. And you might be wondering, Jeremy, why are we talking about running backs, right? Like, we have Joe Mixon. You're correct. Joe Mixon, fantastic this past year for the Houston Texans, but they just extended him this past year after they traded for him from the Cincinnati Bengals. And if they want to keep that production, if they want to keep Joe Mixon on the field, they're going to need to have somebody to bounce off of him, be that, lightning to his thunder. And I don't know if Dameon Pierce is going to be that in 2025. 40 carries, 293 yards, 2 touchdowns this past year. That electric long run up against the New England Patriots. And he gives you something in the kick return game, which, with all the new rules in the NFL, kick returns are going to be a crucial part in this year's season for the Houston Texans. But do we trust him as the RB2 on this team? I don't think so. Let me know what you think, though, down in the comments section. Will Dameon Pierce be the running back 2 for this team this year? This is going to be the pinned comment on today's video, the very top of the comment section. I want you to go down and give me your honest answer, because I honestly think what the Texans need is a speedier back. They need somebody to really bounce off of Joe Mixon, and I don't really think Dameon Pierce is that guy. He's on the last year of his rookie deal as well. I think the Texans are going to probably look into this draft with a loaded running back draft class this year. I would almost guarantee they select one running back at some point during this draft. Now, I don't think it's going to be in round 1. So before I even get into my rankings, I know people, Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, I think both of these guys go round 1. Omarion Hampton has been getting a lot of buzz as a late round 1 guy. If he's there at 25, I really hope the Texans do not take him. I would give that a D grade if they selected Omarion Hampton in the first round of this draft. But both these guys round 1, so I'm taking them off my board of the top 10 running backs in this draft class. Starting off my list at number 10, Bhayshul Tuten from Virginia Tech, the speedy running back who kind of lit it up at the NFL Combine this past year. He comes in at number 10. He's a big play producer with impressive athletic gifts. 4.4 yards after the catch this year, which is elite. Plus, he forced 62 missed tackles, 69 in 2023. Fantastic. Now, the only reason why I'm a little apprehensive about this pick is he has a massive fumbling problem. Fumbled the ball 10 times in 2 years. And he's not great in pass protection. So if you're thinking about somebody as your, third down back, somebody who you want as a pass catcher and pass protector out of the backfield, that's not going to be Bhayshul Tuten. And he's small, right? He's small in stature, 5'9" and 1/4, 206 pounds. I like him if, the Texans don't take a running back and he's there on the board in like round 6, round 7. I'm okay with that. But in terms of guys that I want on this Texans roster, he's at number 10 on this list because I think there's much better prospects in this year's class than Tuten. He comes in at number 10, but maybe in the later rounds could be a steal for a team. Let's go to number 9 on my list, Tahj Brooks from Texas Tech. And he's another one of those late round sleeper guys that I could see a team looking at in the 5th or 6th round. He's a workhorse back who handled 633 touches the past 2 seasons for the Raiders of Texas Tech. Great pass protector and great receiving back. He's inconsistent on tape in terms of his vision. I think he could come in and be a really good, change of pace back for a couple different teams. But I don't know if he's exactly what the Texans are looking for as a complement to Joe Mixon. You look at his numbers from this past year. Over 1,500 rushing yards, 17 touchdowns for Texas Tech. A really good prospect. And like I said, kind of with Tuten, if you can get him after the 5th round, an absolute steal. But not one of my favorite, running back targets for the Texans in this year's draft class. Let's go to number 8 on the list, Trevor Etienne from Georgia. Here's a guy who I think, didn't get his full potential in college, right? Started off at Florida, then transferred to Georgia. He's the younger brother of Jaguars running back Travis Etienne. He has really good vision, great change of direction, but the main concern with him is he was never the workhorse back. He was never somebody who was a true RB1 in college, right? Like I said, he never really lived up to his full potential. He still is only 20 years old. This past year at Georgia, 122 carries, 609 yards, 9 touchdowns for the Bulldogs. And he's faced great competition, right? He's been in the SEC for the past couple of years. Somebody who, if you can get him in round 4, round 5, okay, like I don't hate the pick right there. Trevor Etienne comes in at number 8 on my list. Let's go to number 7, and he might be bumping up a little more than 7 as we get closer to the NFL draft because I really like Dylan Sampson out of the University of Tennessee. The patience and the vision on Sampson is fantastic. He's a good one cut and jump cut talent. His pass pro is okay, but he showed a lot of growth over the past couple of years. He wasn't used much in the passing game at Tennessee, but that's not to be said that he couldn't, change that in the coming years as he enters the NFL and develop into more of a receiving back. Like I said, great production at Tennessee this past year. 256 carries in 2024, over 1,400 yards, and 22 touchdowns for the Volunteers. I really do think Dylan Sampson, past round 3, if you're able to get him in round 4 or round 5, I think he bumps up on my list as well. But I do think a team is going to snag him in round 3. You look at his career rushing yards, obviously a career year in 2024. 2023 was kind of a split back for Tennessee. And the receiving stats, like I mentioned, he wasn't used a ton in the receiving game. But whenever he had the opportunity, was pretty good for Tennessee. Now, let's go to number 6 on my list of the top Texans running back draft targets. R.J. Harvey from UCF. And he's somebody who at the combine was another one of these speedster running backs, a zone-heavy runner with breakaway speed. He's a creative runner who sometimes hunts the big play too much. Plus, he had 6 fumbles in the past 2 years. He's extremely shifty and tough to tackle. No experience on punt returns, but that's a huge gap where the Texans need somebody this next year. They don't have Tank Dell on the team this next year. He's probably going to miss all of 2025 with that injury. Robert Woods was somebody who returned punts for this team. He's not on the roster as of this moment. So R.J. Harvey, if you draft him, you'd hope that he could give you something in the punt return game because he is absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. And like I said, he's somebody who kind of hunts the big play, wants to, hit that home run, and you see it over the past 2 years. Over 1,500 yards in 2024, over 1,400 yards in 2023. A ton of production for Harvey at UCF. 22 touchdowns and 16 touchdowns, respectively, over the past 2 years. And he worked pretty well in the receiving game the past 2 years, too. 20 receptions this past year, 19 receptions in 2023. But like I said, if you're getting a guy like R.J. Harvey, and the reason why I have him at number 6 on my list is because I do believe the Texans are going to have to take him in round 3 if they want to select R.J. Harvey. And if you're selecting a guy in round 3 to be your RB2, you'd really hope that he gives you something in special teams. And he really didn't do that much at UCF. Hopefully, if you do select him, you could have some sort of punt return production from him in his rookie season. Now, coming up, I have my top 5 running backs the Texans should look at in the 2025 NFL Draft. But before I do, our friends at Fanatics have you covered with all of the Texans H-Town gear, the secondary logo. If you don't have anything with the Texans secondary logo yet, well, let me help you change that with our friends at Fanatics. Just go to chatsports.com/H-Town. They have hats, they have hoodies, they have polos, everything you need with this Texans secondary logo, the H-Town logo. I absolutely love it. I have a lot of people in the office who are haters who think the H-Town logo isn't nice. I think it looks fresh. So if you want to check out all the gear they have, this link right here is going to be in the comment section and description of today's video. One more time, it's chatsports.com/H-Town. Go check them out today. All the options available with our friends over at Fanatics. Let's get into the top 5 now. Coming in at number 5, Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State. Coming in at number 5, obviously a highly touted running back, and he comes in at number 5 because I wonder, Does he go in round 2? Does he maybe sneak into round 3? If you have to take him with your round 2 pick, that's why I have him at number 5 on this list, because it wouldn't be my favorite pick, but I would get it. He's met with the Texans at the NFL Combine. He's a powerful runner who is great on inside runs, decent at pass protection and catching the football. Just a hair under 6 foot, 221 pounds. This past year at Ohio State, 194 carries, over 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, was part of that two-headed monster that the Buckeyes had this past year on their way to a national championship. And before that, he was fantastic at Ole Miss. Look at his numbers in 2022, 2023. Over 1,000 yards his past 3 years in college football. 14 touchdowns, 15 touchdowns, 16 touchdowns. He has been, nothing short but one of the most productive running backs in all of college football over the past 3 seasons. And honestly, if you played college football 25, he was an absolute cheat code at the beginning of the regular season. Like I said, leaves something to be desired in the receiving game out of the backfield, and I think that is something important that the Texans will want in that RB2, whoever they select in this year's draft. But Quinshon Judkins comes in at number 5 for me on the top Texans running backs to draft this year. Now, let's go to number 4, Jaydon Blue out of the University of Texas. The Texans actually already had a top 30 visit with Blue. He's a very explosive player, good pass catching ability, plus he's a very shifty runner in open space. His biggest concern is he has a major fumbling problem for this past year. He lacks a little bit of power as a runner at the next level, and he never really took the Texas job, pun intended, by the horns, right? This year, he kind of had the opportunity with some injuries to the backfield to be that RB1, be that workhorse. Gave you 730 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. Not horrible production for them. And I know they like to air the ball out with Quinn Ewers this past year, but not a ton of production in college, right? He's a speedster, a 4.3, 40 type of guy. But is he still progressing? Is his best yet to come? Or is he just a running back that kind of works in the shadows and will give you, some catches from here to there, right? So Jaydon Blue is a little bit of a mystery for me, and I have him so high up because I think you can sneakily get him in the 5th round of this year's draft class, but you have to take him in round 4 or round 3. It makes him go down a little bit on my list personally. Next up, number 3, I actually have TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State above Quinshon Judkins, his running mate. I just think he fits more with what the Texans want to do. The biggest concern with TreVeyon is his vision as a runner in the backfield. But in open space on screens, whenever he has a little crack to run through, he is breakaway, right? We saw it in the college football playoffs, right? He had a couple plays where he just absolutely bursted and he was gone. He's a dynamic player in the passing game. Plus, he's a good blocker as well in pass protection. This past year, with splitting time with Quinshon Judkins, still got over 1,000 yards, 7.1 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns this past year. But really what attracts me most to Henderson as a Texans running back prospect is his receiving stats. Really, if you're looking for a running back to pair with Joe Mixon, you want somebody who is a pass catcher out of the backfield, somebody who can help you out in the passing game. I think TreVeyon Henderson can help you out. He comes in at number 3 only because you'd have to get him in round 2. He's not going to fall past round 2. That's why he comes in at number 3 on my list per se, with a couple guys coming up that I think you could snag in the later rounds of this draft. And that leads us to number 2 on this list, DJ Giddens. Now, the Texans also had a top 30 visit with Giddens. Great production, good size, straight line speed combo, and protects the football. Only 2 fumbles in the past 2 years. Not great as a pass catcher and could be more physical in his running style. And I know what I was just saying about, you need somebody who's a pass catcher. But if you can get Giddens in the 4th or 5th round, oh my goodness, that would be insane. Look at the production at Kansas State. This past year, over 1,300 yards. The year before, over 1,200 yards. 6.6 yards per carry, 5.5 yards per carry in 2023. And he's not atrocious in the receiving game, right? Like, he still gives you something. In 2023, he had 29 receptions for 323 yards. In 2024, 21 receptions for 258 yards. He just has a couple problems with some drops, which you can work on, help him maybe get into the jugs machine, right? Get some catches after practice. But I really do like the idea of getting a DJ Giddens in round 4, round 5, of somebody who can really help out this Texans team. You don't have to take a running back in the first 3 rounds, fill some of those other holes that you need. He doesn't come in at number 1. I have one more guy that I like over him, but DJ Giddens is a very intriguing prospect. Now, here's some guys who just missed the cut, and it hurt my heart. It hurt me right here to leave out Dameon Martinez and Ollie Gordon, because I covered high school football here in the DFW area during my time in college, and I actually got to cover Dameon Martinez and Ollie Gordon, both fantastic young men, fantastic prospects. I just don't think they really fit with what the Texans want to do. They have Joe Mixon, who's already kind of a, hard-nosed, bruising type running back, and kind of the same thing with Caleb Johnson right here too, right? They just don't really fit with what the Texans need at this moment. Devin Neal, Cam Scatabo also just missed the list for me. But that leads me into my number 1 guy. My number 1 person I think the Texans should draft this year at the running back spot, Brashard Smith from SMU, a Texans top 30 visit. He's an explosive player, a former wide receiver who gives you a pass catcher in the backfield. Again, like I said, explosive. One of those 4.3, 40-yard dash guys. And like I said, he's my favorite prospect for the Texans to draft in this class. This past year at SMU, over 1,300 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, and 14 touchdowns. Not a ton of production at Miami. But look, the past 3 years, like I said, he was a wide receiver. So you add somebody where, like I said, the number 1 trait that you really want if you're drafting a running back in this class is somebody who can help you in the receiving game out of the backfield. And I think Brashard Smith does exactly that. You can probably get him at the end of round 3, round 4. Maybe he sneaks into round 5. I doubt he makes it that far down the draft board. But especially if you can maybe trade back, get him in a round 4, round 5, this would be an A++ pick for me personally, in my opinion. Now, if I missed anybody, if you disagree with me, you can always hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs. Give me a shout out. My DMs are always open. And if you made it to the end of the video, if you haven't subscribed already, what's stopping you? This is the number 1 Texans channel here on YouTube. We give you free Texans content all year long, leading up to the NFL draft, after the NFL draft, going into training camp, preseason, all the way in to the Texans regular season. This is your one-stop shop for everything Houston Texans. All you got to do is go down and hit that sub button.